Lucas Grady never suspected that his life would turn upside down so suddenly. It all started with little things, missteps, random forgotten messages, a strange look from his wife that he could have ignored earlier. But today, his intuition was screaming at him that something was wrong. Charlotte, his wife, who had always been neat and meticulous, suddenly became absent-minded, leaving documents and laptop open, leaving the phone without explanation. Lucas watched her from afar, trying to figure out what exactly was causing this unusual anxiety in his chest. He noticed that Charlotte was starting to stay late at work, often going out late, and her phone was emitting mysterious notifications. At first, he thought it was just stress from work, but something about her behavior bothered him. At one point, when she went to the kitchen for coffee, Lucas came over to her laptop. Intuition told him that the truth was hidden here. Opening the folder with the encrypted files, he found what he was most afraid of. There were photos of Charlotte hugging and kissing Rick Dalton, a man he had previously encountered only at corporate meetings. Along with the photos were emails and messages where they discussed meetings and plans, as well as financial documents confirming that Rick transferred money through Charlotte's firm to hide assets after the divorce. Lucas felt a mixture of rage and determination flare up inside him. It wasn't just a betrayal in his personal life. It was a blow to his business, to his reputation, to everything he had built over the years. He understood that one should not act impulsively, otherwise the consequences could be devastating. As a first step, Lucas decided to take advantage of the situation to his advantage. He began to strategically destroy Rick's company, poaching clients and hiring the best employees he could afford. Rick's stock price was plummeting, losing almost a third of its value. Charlotte, as a lawyer, represented the interests of Rick's company, and this added drama to the situation. She became an indirect ally of the enemy. When Charlotte returned home, Lucas met her gaze calmly. He accused her of treason and corporate espionage. She tried to deny it, but he had irrefutable evidence: photographs, correspondence, financial statements. The conversation quickly turned into a conflict. Charlotte, trying to protect herself, only strengthened his determination to see the matter through. Lucas understood that a simple conflict was not enough. He decided to expand the consequences of betrayal. Copies of the documents were sent to the Bar Association, the IRS, and Rick's wife's lawyer. He was confident that he was right and was not afraid of threats from Charlotte. Rick's company's shares continued to fall, customers terminated their contracts, and Lucas' influence in business circles only grew. Charlotte, unable to withstand the pressure, left the house, leaving Lucas with his daughter Megan. He explained the situation to Megan, warned of possible consequences, and decided it was time to tell his friends the truth so as not to leave them in the wrong. The next step required tactics and planning. Lucas went to the Blue Heron Bar, where he expected to meet Mike's friend. He wanted to know what they were saying about him and his situation. Betty, the barmaid, brought him coffee, creating an atmosphere of concentrated expectation. In a conversation with Betty, they discussed Lucas and Charlotte's family quarrel, and she mentioned Rick Dalton, who often appeared in this bar. When Mike arrived, Lucas showed him the photos and correspondence. Mike was shocked and thought Lucas' actions were crazy, but Lucas explained that he was protecting his business and couldn't stay away. Betty shared her experience of revenge for betrayal, which only strengthened Lucas' resolve. Lucas soon met up with Rick in his luxurious office. The office was full of awards and newspaper articles, emphasizing his confidence. The conversation was tense. Rick accused Lucas of corporate sabotage and spreading false information, but at the same time showed fear and confusion. Lucas showed Rick his true face, exposed the illusion that Charlotte loved so much. Financial reports confirmed his accusations, and the call from the Securities Commission was the final blow to Rick's reputation. Meanwhile, Megan found out the truth about her mother, and Lucas discussed everything openly with her, showing evidence and explaining the situation. The next step was to meet with Detective Ray Landis, who investigated Charlotte's harassment and threats, but acknowledged that Lucas had acted within the law to protect himself and his business. Lucas continued to find out who his real friends were. Meetings with Sarah Thompson showed that not everyone supports his position, but he remained firm. After receiving information about Charlotte's whereabouts, he went to the Riverside Inn hotel and confronted her and Rick face to face. The confrontation was tense. Lucas exposed the betrayal, emphasized the consequences, and left, leaving Charlotte to face the truth. 3 days later, he attended the Chamber of Commerce's gala. In front of hundreds of people, he publicly exposed Charlotte, showing photographs, correspondence, and financial statements. The audience was shocked, and Rick was arrested on fraud charges. Lucas returned home to Megan, preparing to start a new life free from betrayal and deception. Lucas sold his house, rebuilt his business, and gained new confidence. He understood that the war was over, and now he was ready for new beginnings. Megan and he discussed the future, realizing that truth and honesty are the only guidelines that can guide them forward. Lucas sat at the corner table in the dimly lit bar, the Blue Heron, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. The hum of quiet conversations and clinking glasses filled the room, yet his mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment, every subtle signal he had missed from Charlotte. His jaw tightened as he reviewed the evidence on his phone once again. The photographs, the emails, the financial transfers. Everything pointed to her betrayal and the web of deceit she had spun with Rick Dalton. The bar's door opened, and a slight chill followed a man inside. Lucas's longtime friend, Mike Thompson, approached, his face etched with concern. "Luke, you look like hell," Mike said, settling into the chair opposite him. Lucas offered a small, tired smile. "I've had better days, Mike, but I need to talk." He handed Mike his phone, scrolling through the images of Charlotte and Rick. Mike's eyes widened in disbelief. Is this real?" he whispered. Lucas nodded solemnly. "Every bit of it. And it's worse than you think. She's not just cheating. She's been manipulating everything around me, even my company." Mike leaned back, shaking his head. "Luke, you're crossing into dangerous territory here. You're talking about retaliation, exposing her. You know how people react to that." Lucas ignored the warning. He had to act. The betrayal was personal, yes, but it had seeped into his professional life. Rick Dalton wasn't just a lover. He was an opponent in business, subtly undermining Lucas's company while Charlotte facilitated it. "I'm not reckless," Lucas replied. "I've calculated every step. I'm protecting my daughter, my business, my life." The conversation shifted when Betty, the bar's bartender, approached with a fresh cup of coffee. She glanced at Lucas with a knowing look. "Family drama?" she asked. Lucas gave a bitter laugh. "Something like that. My wife is cheating, my business is under attack. It's a perfect storm." Betty nodded sympathetically. "I've seen it before. People underestimate the power of betrayal. You think it's just emotional, but it spreads into everything. Your work, your friends, your reputation." Lucas clenched his fists. "Exactly. And I'm not letting it destroy me." It wasn't long before Mike voiced what Lucas had tried to suppress. The possibility that his actions were veering into paranoia. "Luke, are you sure this isn't just obsession? Revenge can ruin a man." Lucas's eyes hardened. "I'm not obsessed. I'm aware. Every move I make is documented. Every action is justified. And soon, everyone will see the truth." Later that evening, Lucas approached Rick Dalton's office. The towering glass building gleamed in the twilight, reflecting the city's lights. His heart pounded, not with fear, but anticipation. This confrontation would determine the next stage of the battle. As he entered the sleek lobby, the receptionist led him to Rick's office, a room filled with accolades, photographs, and evidence of wealth and influence. The air smelled faintly of expensive cologne and polished wood. Rick was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the skyline. He turned slowly when Lucas entered, his expression unreadable. He was tall, impeccably dressed, confident. "Lucas," Rick said smoothly, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" Lucas took the seat opposite him. "We need to talk about your business and Charlotte." Rick's confident facade faltered slightly, though he tried to mask it. "Are you accusing me?" he asked. "Of what?" "Of everything," Lucas replied. "The affair, the manipulation, the financial sabotage. I have proof." He placed the documents, photographs, and emails on Rick's polished desk. Rick's eyes flicked over them, and for the first time, Lucas saw fear in the man's gaze. "You think you can ruin me?" Rick hissed, his voice tight. "My company, my reputation? I'm not trying to ruin you," Lucas said calmly. "I'm revealing the truth. You've compromised yourself and everyone around you." For the next hour, Lucas dismantled Rick's carefully constructed world. He exposed the hidden financial transactions, the secret agreements, and the lies that had been fed to Charlotte. Each revelation chipped away at Rick's poise. A call from the Securities Commission regarding suspicious financial activities confirmed Lucas's claims and left Rick visibly shaken. The next step was confronting Charlotte directly. Lucas tracked her to the Riverside Inn, her temporary refuge with Rick. The hallway was quiet, only the soft hum of the air conditioning breaking the silence. Lucas knocked on room 237, his heart steady, his resolve firm. The door opened to reveal Charlotte in a hotel robe, Rick beside her, caught completely off guard. "You lied to me," Lucas said, his voice low but controlled. "You betrayed me, our daughter, everything I trusted you with." Rick attempted to intervene, but Lucas ignored him, presenting the evidence he had meticulously gathered. "You thought you could hide behind lies and money," Lucas said. "But it's all exposed now, and there are consequences for both of you." The confrontation escalated quickly. Rick tried to intimidate Lucas, stepping forward aggressively, but a misstep sent him stumbling into a bottle of champagne, which shattered across the floor. Charlotte tried to speak, her excuses falling flat. Lucas's calm, methodical demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos he had uncovered. He left the hotel room, leaving them to confront the reality of their actions. 3 days later, Lucas attended the gala of the local Chamber of Commerce. The grand hall sparkled with chandeliers, the murmurs of the city's elite filling the space. Charlotte entered in a stunning red gown, projecting the image of a successful, resilient lawyer. Lucas, however, was focused and deliberate. This was his stage to reveal the truth publicly. He approached the podium, interrupting the program. Silence fell. Lucas began presenting the evidence: photographs, financial records, and correspondence that documented the betrayal and corporate sabotage. Gasps filled the room as the audience realized the depth of Charlotte's deception and Rick's criminal activity. People pulled out their phones, recording the spectacle. Charlotte's face contorted with fury. She slapped Lucas, but he remained composed. He announced that Rick Dalton had been arrested for securities fraud and money laundering. The crowd buzzed with shock, and Lucas stepped down, leaving Charlotte exposed before hundreds of witnesses. Returning home to his daughter, Megan, Lucas felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The truth was out, justice was set in motion, and he could begin rebuilding his life. Plans were made to sell the house, restructure the business, and move forward without fear. The long war was over. Lucas had won, not through violence, but through patience, strategy, and unwavering commitment to truth. After the dramatic events at the gala, Lucas returned to the quiet of his home with Megan, his daughter. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken words, now felt almost surreal in its calm. Megan met him at the door, her eyes wide, still processing everything she had learned about her mother. Lucas knelt down to her level and spoke gently. "Megan, I know this is hard, but the truth matters. And now, we can move forward together." Megan nodded slowly, clutching a small notebook she had used to jot questions over the past weeks. "Dad, will she come back?" "Mom, I mean." Lucas sighed, resting a hand on her shoulder. "I don't think she will, honey. Not in the way we imagined. But that's okay. Sometimes, people show us who they really are, and it's our job to protect ourselves and those we love." He smiled softly. "And we'll be fine. You and I, we've got each other." The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Lucas contacted his lawyer and accountant, meticulously reviewing his company's finances to ensure that no further manipulations had occurred. He documented everything, keeping a tight record of communications, contracts, and financial statements. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about securing a future free from deceit. At the same time, he began selling the house that had been a symbol of betrayal. The walls that had once echoed arguments and silent resentments were now emptied of memories, leaving a blank canvas for a new chapter in his life. Lucas spent hours going through belongings, deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to destroy. Each object he set aside felt like a step toward closure. Friends and colleagues reached out cautiously. Some were supportive, others hesitant, wary of the storm that had unfolded publicly. Lucas handled each interaction with the same strategic calm he had used in the business conflict. He shared selective truths, enough to clarify his position without inflaming old wounds. Over time, he began to see who his real friends were, those who had stayed or reached out genuinely. versus those who had sided with Charlotte or distanced themselves. Megan became a source of strength and motivation. Lucas involved her in the process of moving and rebuilding, not to burden her, but to help her understand resilience. They spent afternoons exploring new neighborhoods, imagining a fresh start, and talking about dreams and goals. Megan, once hesitant and uncertain, started to smile more freely, her laughter a balm to the lingering tension in Lucas's mind. Meanwhile, Lucas dedicated himself to rebuilding his business. He reached out to loyal clients, offering transparency and assurances, slowly regaining trust and credibility. He also expanded the company strategically, hiring talented professionals who shared his vision and ethics. Each new hire reinforced the values he had always believed in: honesty, accountability, and commitment to excellence. Socially, Lucas began attending community events, carefully observing interactions and asserting his presence without aggression. At a charity fundraiser, he ran into people who had once whispered about Charlotte's successes and his alleged failures. Standing tall, he greeted them politely, letting the confidence and composure in his demeanor speak for itself. Word of Rick Dalton's arrest and Charlotte's public disgrace had spread, and the balance of social perception was shifting back in Lucas's favor. Lucas also took time to reflect personally. Mornings were spent jogging through quiet streets, thinking deeply about what had transpired. He journaled extensively, capturing his thoughts, feelings, and the lessons learned from betrayal and vindication. The act of writing became therapeutic, clarifying his priorities and intentions for the future. Despite the pain of loss, Lucas recognized growth. The ordeal had strengthened his ability to assess character, handle conflict, and act decisively under pressure. More importantly, it had reinforced the value of transparency and integrity. He was no longer the man who doubted himself in private moments of unease. He was a father, a businessman, and an individual who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. One evening, as Lucas and Megan prepared dinner in their new apartment, she looked up from her homework. "Dad, are you happy now?" she asked quietly. Lucas paused, considering his answer. "I'm happy, Megan. Not because everything is perfect, but because we've taken control of our lives. We've faced the truth, and now we can build something real, something lasting. That's more important than anything else." Megan smiled, a genuine light in her eyes, and Lucas felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that victory wasn't about revenge or public humiliation. It was about reclaiming life, dignity, and trust. As weeks turned into months, Lucas's life began to settle into a new rhythm. Business flourished under his careful stewardship. Megan excelled at school, buoyed by the stability and honesty her father provided. They cultivated friendships that were grounded in mutual respect, and Lucas finally allowed himself to relax without suspicion or fear. One afternoon, while reviewing plans for a new office expansion, Lucas received a call from Detective Ray Landis. The detective informed him that Charlotte had withdrawn her complaints, and Rick Dalton's legal team had decided against pursuing counterclaims. The final obstacle had cleared, leaving Lucas with a clean path forward. Lucas hung up the phone and glanced at Megan, who was reading on the sofa. "It's over, Megan. Really over this time," he said. She looked up, her expression thoughtful. "Does that mean we can just live now?" Lucas smiled, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Yes, we can. And we will. No more shadows, no more lies. Just us, building the life we deserve." That night, Lucas sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The journey had been long, painful, and unpredictable, but he had endured. The battles, personal, professional, emotional, were behind him. Ahead lay a future shaped by truth, courage, and unwavering resolve. He knew there would be challenges, but for the first time in years, Lucas faced them without fear, knowing that he had not only survived betrayal, but had transformed it into strength. The war was over. Lucas had won. And now, with Megan by his side, he was ready to embrace life fully, rebuilding, thriving, and finding joy in the everyday moments that once seemed so fragile. In the weeks following the public revelation at the gala, Lucas found himself reflecting constantly on the fragility of trust. Every encounter, every decision, carried the weight of past betrayal. He realized that life had a strange way of revealing truths in layers. First the visible, then the hidden, until nothing could be ignored. Even casual meetings with friends had become tests of character. Who would stand by him? Who would quietly cheer for Charlotte's deceit from behind polite smiles? One morning, Lucas met with Emily Harris, a former colleague of Charlotte's who had once been close to both of them professionally. Over coffee at a quiet cafe downtown, Emily shared subtle insights into Charlotte's manipulations, small, almost imperceptible tactics of influence she had employed over years. Charlotte always knew how to tilt the narrative in her favor, Emily said softly. Even when she was wrong, people often believed her first. It's not just charm, it's strategy. Lucas listened carefully, absorbing every detail. And Rick? He asked, leaning forward. Emily hesitated. Rick? He's all surface, Lucas. Confidence, money, looks. But the depth, it's all hollow. Charlotte knew that. That's why she clung to him in the first place. The conversation confirmed what Lucas already knew, but hearing it aloud reinforced his understanding of the dynamics he had faced. He paid the bill, thanked Emily, and walked out into the crisp morning air. He felt lighter, armed not with anger, but with clarity. Back at his new apartment, Lucas and Megan established routines that strengthened their bond. Mornings began with shared breakfasts, during which Lucas would discuss plans for the day and Megan would tell him about school projects and friendships. In the afternoons, they explored the city together, visiting parks, libraries, and local events. Megan's laughter slowly replaced the shadows of doubt and fear that had lingered in their home for months. Lucas also took care to nurture his professional life. He held weekly meetings with his management team, reviewing client accounts and strategic plans. Every decision was made with careful precision, ensuring that past vulnerabilities would not be exploited again. He began to mentor young employees, teaching them not just business tactics, but also the importance of ethics, transparency, and resilience. One afternoon, Lucas received an unexpected call from Sarah Thompson, Mike's wife. Lucas, she said, her voice tinged with concern. I wanted to check on you on Megan. I know things have been rough, but I also want to say, I admire how you've handled everything. Lucas smiled faintly. Thank you, Sarah. It hasn't been easy, but we're getting through it. Over time, Sarah became a trusted ally, providing guidance and emotional support. She helped Megan navigate school challenges, offered advice on social situations, and even encouraged Lucas to attend community events he had previously avoided. Her presence reminded Lucas that some connections withstand crises, and true allies reveal themselves in the aftermath of turmoil. Meanwhile, Lucas maintained careful observation of Charlotte's movements. She had retreated from the public eye, attempting to rebuild her own reputation, but Lucas no longer felt anger, only a measured vigilance. Occasionally, he would receive indirect updates through mutual acquaintances or subtle social media hints. He never reacted impulsively. Instead, he documented each piece of information, maintaining a detailed log of her actions. As the months passed, Lucas noticed subtle changes within himself. He was calmer, more disciplined, and surprisingly patient. The ordeal had taught him the value of strategic thinking, emotional control, and long-term planning. He also developed a nuanced understanding of human nature, the capacity for deceit, the allure of charm, and the consequences of choices left unchecked. Megan's schooling became a shared focus. Lucas attended parent-teacher meetings, actively participating in her academic journey. He collaborated with teachers to ensure she was supported both emotionally and academically. Megan, in turn, became more confident and engaged, thriving in an environment free from deceit and tension. The business grew steadily. Lucas forged new partnerships with firms that valued honesty and transparency, creating a network that was resilient to manipulation. He introduced mentorship programs for younger employees, emphasizing ethical decision-making and the importance of integrity. The company's reputation improved, clients returned, and profitability increased, not through shortcuts, but through careful, principled work. Socially, Lucas began hosting gatherings at his new apartment, inviting friends and colleagues who had proven their loyalty. These events were not grandiose, but intimate, opportunities to strengthen genuine connections. Discussions ranged from business strategies to personal growth, and Lucas often shared his experiences subtly, not to boast, but to offer lessons learned. Despite the busy schedule, Lucas found moments for reflection. He journaled extensively, writing about fears, hopes, and lessons. These private sessions allowed him to process complex emotions, ensuring that past betrayals would not fester into resentment. The act of recording his thoughts became a cornerstone of his emotional resilience. One late evening, as Lucas sat by the window overlooking the city lights, Megan approached, holding a small book she had been reading. "Dad, do you think people can really change?" she asked, her voice tentative. Lucas considered this, gazing at the twinkling lights below. "Some people can, Megan. Some don't. But the important thing is that we focus on who we are, how we act, and the choices we make. We can't control everyone else, but we can control ourselves." Megan nodded thoughtfully. "I want to be like that. Strong, smart, careful, but kind." Lucas smiled, a deep warmth filling him. "You already are, Megan. Every day, you remind me why life is worth protecting and why truth matters more than anything else."